Welcome to another episode of Off the Rak. I'm Walt Rakowich, and I'm grateful to have you here as we explore what it means to practice transformative leadership. So Joe Sanders is a nationally recognized expert in character and leadership development. He's a retired Air Force colonel and the former director of the Center for Character and Leadership Development at the U.S. Air Force Academy. Over Joe's career, he shaped the moral and ethical growth of more than 13,000 cadets and staff. He delivered over 2,000 plus lectures and workshops and published widely on transformational leadership, servant leadership, and organizational spirituality. Today, he serves as CEO of Colorado Uplift, helping underserved students achieve academic and career success. And he's also the founder of Touchstone Leadership Academy. Above all, Joe is proudest of his role as husband to Lourdes and father to 3 beautiful boys. Today, we're going to talk about Joe's latest project, his new book, Unreasonable Responsibility, Eradicating the Disease of Entitlement. So please join us for a powerful conversation with Joe Sanders, a servant leader who exemplifies unreasonable responsibility in every aspect of his life. So, Joe, it's great to have you on the show again.
Yeah, great to be here again. Thank you for having me.
It's so awesome to have you. It really is. But listen, before we get into kind of the meat of what I really want to talk to you about, I want to talk Air Force football for a second. Okay.
Okay.
All right. First of all, what's your prediction on the final season, the record in the final season? And also tell me if you think you'll beat Army and Navy.
Well, I'll start with Army and Navy.
All right.
We will absolutely beat Army, and we will absolutely sink Navy. And I
Woo!
know we have one loss under our belt now, but my hopeful is that we'll be able to go undefeated for the rest of the season. So, maybe we'll end the season with just one loss. 11-1, feels pretty good to me.
All right. Well, I'm still waiting for you to take me to a game down there in Colorado Springs.
Yes, we'll have to make that happen.
I would love to do that someday with
Absolutely.
you. You know, I've never been to that stadium, and I only live an hour north.
Yeah,
So
well, we'll have to change that. We'll definitely have to change that. Yeah, and I'd say, as venues go, the pageantry is it's second to none for sure.
Yeah, I know. I can imagine. It's a beautiful looking stadium with the background and all the mountains and everything. It's just so gorgeous.
Yes.
Hey, Joe, let's talk a little bit about the Air Force Academy first, and kind of what you gained. You've spent decades shaping leadership character of future officers and the like at the Air Force Academy. And of course, now you lead Colorado Uplift, but you're impacting underserved youth. But as you look back on that, and even today, what kind of core values have remained constant in your leadership journey across the different environments that you're in?
Yeah. When I think about the core values of the Air Force Academy, really Air Force as a whole, we always focused on integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. Those were our core values. And those core values, I do think, really could go across and have gone across all the areas that I've been involved in, to include Colorado Uplift. When I think about the integrity we have to have, one, with our students, to make sure that we do what we say we're going to do and have our students be able to depend on us. It could be our donors that are investing in us and that are counting on us to do the right thing with the funds they're providing. Then service before self, that's really at the heart of what we do. And when we think about being at Uplift, we always say people are here because they're on a call. It is a call. They have a servant's heart. And then the idea of being excellent in all we do. We believe at Uplift, we're doing some incredible work, but we're always on the hunt of how can we get better? How can we improve? How can we innovate? And so this excellence, all we do, I think it parallels and dovetails right into what we're doing here. And there's a couple maxims that I took with me from the Air Force Academy and from the Air Force as a whole. And one is the idea that we believe in mission first, but people always. And that's something that I think we've been able to continue to demonstrate, and something that I keep front and center. Always focus on what we do in terms of the mission and keeping that front and center. However, remembering that people matter, and we can
Mm.
never take our eye off of taking care of people. And the other maxim, and you're pretty familiar with this one too, Walt, that we use is this idea of one team, one fight. And
Mm.
just really a rallying cry to make sure that we're all united and we're all pulling and moving towards the same goal, the same objective. So I do think that a lot of the things and a lot of the values, I should say, from Air Force, I've been able to see them manifest themselves here at Colorado Uplift as well.
It's really the essence of servant leadership, though, that you're espousing, you're talking about.
It really is, and that really for me is at the heart of leadership.
Joe, when you were at the Air Force Academy, I heard somebody say that you oversaw nearly 1 million hours of character education. That's amazing. I mean, that's a heck of a lot of education. So, you're obviously educating kids now, but what have you found to be the most effective way to help people not just learn about character, but also live it out?
Yeah, when I think about character, education, and development, I go all the way back to really the ancient Greece, and the ancient Greeks believe that you have a good society because you have good citizens, and you have good citizens because you have a good society. So it really was this recursive relationship where they understood how the culture had a role in shaping the individual, and the individuals you're developing to feed into that culture shape the culture. And what I saw at the Air Force Academy is really us leveraging culture to shape character. Because, like a lot of things, and character in particular is better caught than just taught. And so we leverage that, and I know, we're familiar with the iceberg model, by Edgar Schein, and he talks about, those three levels and how you have these artifacts at the top. And then you go to the Air Force Academy and you'll see our core values on our walls. And there's a lot of things we do that you can see above ground or above the water, so to speak. But if you look down below and you start looking at the espoused values, you start looking at the underlying beliefs and assumptions, that's really where the work was done, to make sure that there was a clear alignment between our cadets, our staff, and our faculty in terms of their beliefs, the way they thought, and the way they felt. That's really how we got after shaping our staff and our students and our cadets, as well as making sure that they in turn could help us shape the culture we're trying to build there as well.
And do you think, Joe, that by putting those things up on the wall, that people actually look at it and focus on it and believe in it, and actually it affects the very things that they do?
I absolutely do. But to Edgar Schein's model, if you just stop at the artifacts, which some organizations do, and you don't go below the surface, and you don't get to those espoused values, you don't get to that level of underlying assumptions, then sometimes organizations end up missing the mark. And I believe at the Air Force Academy, we really try to hit it at all levels. The underlying assumptions are really starting there, like as the basis, and then building on top of that the values, and then having that manifest itself in the artifacts. And I thought that was really critical. The other thing I'd say too is important in terms of helping a person live out core values is modeling. I think modeling obviously is part of building a culture as well, but the idea of modeling, we're wired to imitate what we see as human beings. I mean, we actually have, mirror neurons built into the way we think and process things. So modeling's powerful. There's a social scientist, Albert Bandura, who's done a lot of work on social learning theory. And that's exactly what he talks about. And his proposition is that the vast majority of our learning occurs in social settings, and it occurs because we're modeling and imitating the people around us. So if we want to have people live out character, putting people in front of them that are living out the kind of character we want them to live out is a way to go about doing it. So I think culture, and then having models in the lives of our students and the lives of people we're trying to develop, are key elements of helping people live out their character.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So, Joe, let's talk a little bit about Uplift, Colorado Uplift. You're focused on academic achievement, workforce readiness, character building for underserved kids, basically underserved from fourth grade through senior year in high school. What are some of the more exciting or maybe innovative approaches that you're using to try to help young people break the cycles of poverty, really, and build their futures?
Yeah, I would say that the basic model that we use in and of itself is innovative. It's something where we take students in the classroom, we form those connections there, but we also have the same students and the same teachers mentor these students outside of the classroom. And so by doing that, we're able to create a relationship. When you think about development in and of itself, it must occur in the context of a relationship, and that allows us to then create structures of challenge, support, and accountability. And I think that approach is relatively innovative because oftentimes we have in-school programs and you have after-school programs. You have different people. You might sit in class and then you send somebody to an after-school program, but we have the same teachers that are serving as mentors afterwards. And so that relationship that we are able to build, I think, is critical. The other thing I'll say, though, in terms of some of the exciting things we're doing is we've been able to, over the past few years, and we're doing more of this now, provide our students with real-world experiences. We have an advanced leadership course now that we teach where our students, they learn about organizational leadership. They learn all the theories behind organizational leadership, but then they also get a chance to visit companies and spend time in companies interviewing CEOs and human resource directors to talk about how do these principles that we're learning about in the classrooms really play out in the workplace. We have internship programs and shadowing programs that we're establishing as well. And the other thing that's really neat, I'm excited to get this started, is we're establishing a professional ally program. As I mentioned before, our teachers, they teach in the classroom, they mentor after school, but then there is this gap in terms of career experiences that our teacher mentors may not have experience in. So our teacher mentors may not have been an accountant or CPA, or they may not have experiences in real estate. But we have board members and we have people in the community that have this experience. And so what we're going to be doing is having them sign up to come alongside and complement our staff and helping them understand the career aspirations and the pathway for our students to move down those career paths. And so that's something I'm really, really, really excited about. And I think we've done it informally, but the idea that we're going to have an actual program where our board members can be more connected to our students, I think is really, really going to make a difference.
So it's not just teaching in the classroom. It's, if you will, it's modeling character and leadership and experiences outside the classroom that probably make as much, if not more, difference.
Absolutely, absolutely.
One of the neatest trips that I was on, Joe, you're going to remember this many years ago. You and I went to Tijuana, Mexico, to build houses for poor families there, and we took maybe 50 inner city kids with us down there, all of whom thought that they were poor until they saw what was in Mexico,
Yes.
and they realized that they actually were blessed. And sometimes seeing it out there is as powerful as being learned of it in class.
Absolutely.
And that was a
Absolutely.
powerful experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right. Well, when you can see it, you can feel it, you can experience, those are the types of things that I really think start shaping a person.
Yeah.
And of course we have to have, the theories and the concepts. And, for me, I love that, but it really is exposing our kids to real world experiences that helps to shape their perspective. One of the things I talk about a lot is the difference between informative and transformative learning. And Robert Keegan I can't take credit for it, but he talks about those distinctions. And what he describes as informative learning is if you take a cup or a glass and you pour water into it, you're pouring information, and that's needed sometimes. But really, transformation is about taking that actual cup or that glass or whatever you have, and you're actually shaping that. You're expanding that right? So you're not just pouring information in, you're actually changing the form and the shape of the very thing you're pouring it into. And
Mm.
I believe that's what we do here at Colorado Uplift. When they go to Tijuana, they have a different experience. Their schema, their way of looking at the world is changing. It's not that they're just getting more information.
Yeah, that's a really great analogy. I love the picture of that.
Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna remember that next time I drink a little bit of water.
Yeah.
Hey, Joe, I want to talk about your new book, Unreasonable Responsibility, right here.
Oh, yes.
I mean, I really have enjoyed reading it,
Thank
and
you.
it's all about how leaders can take on what you call the disease of entitlement. Not just leaders, but how people can take on this disease of entitlement. And I'd like you to take us back to the genesis of the idea to write about it in the first place, and what you call your Popeye moment, which I love. What do you mean by that?
Yeah. So thank you for yeah, taking the time to read the book first of all, and for your kind words about it. But for me, the Popeye moment I had, when I got to that place where I had, all I could stand and I couldn't stand no more. Really, it started when I just started when I was seeing a lot of patterns in our society, in terms of our educational system and our sports, and looking even at politics and looking at the workplace. And it seemed like this idea of entitlement and people thinking and focusing on their rights, was just showing up over and over and over again. And what really hit me and what really drew me into it were the conversations I was having with leaders. And when I think about leaders, I'm not saying just a person in a leadership position per se, but I'm just talking about a person that's in a place where they can have influence over others and they care enough to influence them. So these were parents and they were coaches, they were teachers and folks in the educational system. And what they were telling me is what they were seeing in their students, what they were seeing in their children, what they were seeing in the players. And it was just this sense of, you owe me something. I don't need to give anything to, but what are you going to give me? And I was feeling for these leaders, because one of the things I also recognized is that they didn't even have a way to articulate what they were feeling. Because for instance, if you're in a workplace and you have that sense that somebody's being entitled, all of a sudden now what you say and when you try to approach that person to hold them accountable, you might be looked at as a bad boss,
Mhm.
because you're not allowing this person, you're not accommodating for this person. So how do you enter that conversation and still be seen as a caring leader? And so those were some of the struggles and challenges these leaders were putting in front of me, and I was like, I'm struggling with the same thing. And I got to the point I was actually talking with Brian Stammer, our COO, Chief Operating Officer, and I was telling him about this, and I was kind of bemoaning it, and I just got to the point. I said, Brian, I just got to do something about this.
Mhm.
And I thought about it in terms of I can continue to talk about it, or actually take some responsibility and do something about it. And
Mhm.
so that's when the idea of actually writing a book that addresses that can help these leaders and really help us collectively deal with this thing called entitlement emerged.
Is entitlement, is it just what's in your mind? I mean, how do you define it?
Yeah, so I define entitlement as in the book I talk about it as a disease, of course, but it really is it's a belief, right? And it's a
Mhm.
belief that you have some unearned right to a privilege or benefit, but you hold that belief in such a way where it actually causes limitations and wreaks havoc, right, on yourself and those around you. And that's one of the distinctions I actually make in the book, is that, when you think about entitlement, sometimes it's thought of as almost like morally neutral. Hey, somebody has a belief in a unearned right, and they stop there at with the dictionary definition. But if you really start unpacking it and you start looking at what some of the experts in the field say, it can actually cause a lot of damage and a lot of harm. And
Mhm.
so that's why I talk about it as a disease, and I want to make sure we understood the dangers of this thing we call it entitlement.
And is it? relegated to certain groups of people, or do you write, do you write more about it that we all have it? I mean, can we slip in and out of it? All of us.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
We can all have it, right? Because like I said, it really is it's a kind of a belief, and it's a mindset. And I think the temptation for a lot of folks is to point to other people and say, well, that person's entitled, because we can see it in others often. And I know a lot of when I was doing the book, there's a lot of studies out there that talk about the younger generation, and there's studies that say they're not entering the workplace to the level that they need to, and 65% of managers are seeing their younger generations of employees as entitled. So you can point to those kinds of studies, but really it goes across all lines. I mean,
Right.
entitlement is not just a rich person problem. It's not just a poor person's problem. It's not, ethnicity. It's across all ethnic groups. It really permeates. It's a me problem. It's a you problem. It's a we problem. It's the way I look at entitlement.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, so, okay, so in the book you talk about, I mean, the solution in your view is responsibility, I think, somewhat, right? In other
Yes.
words, you talk about how it enslaves us, it's a disease, but then you talk about how responsibility leads to freedom,
Yes.
right? Embracing responsibility.
Yes.
And so, can you talk a little bit about that
Yes.
responsibility side of it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So, really that basic premise is grounded in the work from Viktor Frankl, who, as you know,
Mm-hmm.
wrote Man's Search for Meaning.
Answer for meaning. Yep.
Holocaust survivor, spent time in concentration camps. And
Right.
his whole, premise was about how we can find a sense of freedom and a sense of meaning in life.
Right.
And what he boiled it down to when he talked about, the purpose that we can gain out of life is that the element of responsibility has to be there. And it really is a key to freedom. And he talks about how life is not so much should not be about what life owes me, but it should be about what do I owe life.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this other piece that I love too, where he says, we have the Statue of Liberty on the East Coast. He said we need to erect a statue of responsibility on the West Coast to show how they complement each other. And so
Yeah.
in his mind, responsibility and
Interesting.
freedom really went hand in hand. And you can't really enjoy your freedom without responsibility. And then we know over the time we've had presidents, we've had people call for this. I mean, JFK asked
Okay.
not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And so the idea is that when you assume responsibility, a whole new world opens up instead of just focusing on our rights.
And you write about it from the perspective of it being unreasonable. And so, what do you mean by unreasonable?
Yeah, great question. I would say that in a world of entitlement, as I describe it in the book, any amount of responsibility is going to seem unreasonable because I think responsibility is MIA. I talk about how it's either discarded, like it's thrown away, it's diffused. You put it on somebody else, assuming somebody else is going to do it, or it's displaced, where you're actually blaming somebody else. So I would say that any amount of responsibility is going to seem unreasonable in this world. But to lean even further into it, what I'm really getting at when I talk about unreasonable responsibility is going beyond the world's reasonable expectations in order to fulfill your commitments. And whether that's at the personal level, the relational level, or the societal level. Practically speaking, what that could look like, it could be a person that's employed and they decide to stay late after work to help somebody in another department. Although that's not in their job description, and reasonably, if they're just doing what they're told to do, they get a paycheck, it's more of a kind of a transaction. I did what I was supposed to do. That may not be in their job description, but they're staying to help somebody in another department.
Mm-hmm.
It could look like somebody who's, a kid who's stocking the shelves at Walmart. And he looks around and he notices that somebody's trying to find something. And he stops, to say, hey, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
Or it could be a basketball player who stays after practice to get up some extra shots because of the commitment that that person has to the team and to getting better. And I also think, for me, I think about the military. I think about our first responders and their unreasonable commitment to run towards the fight, to run towards the fire, right? So that
Yeah.
other people have the luxury to run away from it.
So what you're really saying is going over the society might look at going over and beyond as being unreasonable. But you're saying go over and beyond what you would do normally. And by doing that, which society sees as unreasonable, or perhaps you do, but you liberate yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because things start showing up that you wouldn't naturally see.
Yeah.
I talk in the book a little bit about this, but one of the examples I give is of my wife. And when she had cancer, and we went through that bout of cancer, and I know you and I've had this conversation, and you can relate to this at a personal level as well. But one of the things, she was able to liberate herself from this disease well before she was physically cancer free, because in her mind, she went from asking why me, which is, I'm stuck on focus on me. Why does this happen to me? To saying, why not me? And when she said, why not me? She started seeing opportunities to be an example for our kids, to be a testimony for the ladies in her community, right? To be a beacon of hope for other ladies who are going through cancer. She was no longer enslaved to this entitlement, no longer enslaved to focusing on herself and why me. She was now open to say and see other opportunities and assume responsibility for the well-being of others beyond herself. That
Yeah.
seems unreasonable.
Yeah. And Joe, one other question about it. You in the book, you talk about it playing out in three spheres, this responsibility. Can you talk a little bit about that too?
Yes. So one of the things I wanted to make sure we did with this book, and actually I remember talking to you before I wrote the book, and one of the things you said, hey, Joe, make sure as you're writing the book, which was wise counsel. I still remember sitting at breakfast, sharing this idea with you.
Mm.
And you said, don't just complain about it. Don't just tell us the problem. Give us a solution.
Yep.
And so again, solution, talking about unreasonable responsibility, but also do it in a way where you can bring those concepts to life. And so what I talk a lot about in the book is the distinction between a rights-based mindset and a responsibility-based mindset, but then also saying, okay, if you take this responsibility-based mindset and you're going to be unreasonable with this, there are some contextual things that you have to be aware of. And that's where I came up with those three areas. So one is the commitment that you're going to have at the personal level. And I call it the stand that we need to take. And there's actually a series of stands. There's some dimensions that you need to understand around that. My father used to always say, you have to stand for something or you'll fall for anything. So the first level of this personal commitment is, what do I really stand for? And then also being able to clarify that stand in your core and what you believe in your identity. And then what kind of actions can I now take that are in alignment with that? And then the other dimensions of the stand includes being able to stand beyond your circumstances, because the circumstances are not always going to be conducive to the stand. Sometimes I can stand against opposition. And then I talk about how we need to be able to stand by our results at the end of the day. When I do something, good or bad, I need to be able to stand by those. And so that's one of the areas. So it really is just a way to talk about our levels of commitment. The next level of commitment, in addition to that personal level, is the relational level. And so while you stand at the personal level, at the relational level, we actually make promises to people. Those are the commitments that we make to others. And so one of those examples could be, I promise to give 100% or own 100% of my effort and my attitude. And so Walt, one day, if you say something that may cause me to get upset, I'm not going to allow that to get in the way of the commitment that I have to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to allow that to dictate my attitude and my effort. I'm still going to be committed to that 100%. And hopefully you can see how liberating that can be. So now my commitment, my effort and my attitude is not dictated by what a person does or doesn't do for me in this relationship. It's based on my commitment. It's based on my commitment and my commitment to that relationship. And so I have a series of things that I talk about in a relational context or relational sphere. And then the final sphere is societal. So what kind of commitments do I make there? And so we stand at the personal level, we make promises at the relational level, and then we make declarations at the societal level. What are we actually declaring to the world? What commitments do I have to society, to make society better, to make those around me better? And so those are the manifested commitments that I talk about in the book.
Well, that I'm telling you, man, it's very powerful. Again, Unreasonable Responsibility. You got to read it. It's awesome. And Joe, I'm going to do my best though, never to tick you off. I know you're going to keep your commitment. And I'm not going to tick you off.
Well, you have not, and I don't believe that you would, but I figured just to make the point.
I know, I understand. Well, listen.
But if you do, Walt, you just know that I'm still going to be committed.
Yeah, I know you're still committed. I know.
It's liberating for me, but also should be liberating for you as well.
It will be. It will be liberating for me as well. Joe, I ask all my guests this year about purpose in the last question, and I mean, your entire philosophy is built on being present and really being purposeful, and that's one of the things I love about you. What single purpose are you most passionate about pursuing today?
It's a great question. I think it would go back to something you said at the beginning when you talked about servant leadership. For me, I believe that leadership begins and ends with service, and having a servant heart is important. So I would think, from that perspective, I would actually say that the idea of serving the next generation of leaders so that they can, in turn, be leaders, that's what gets me up every day. Is how can I best serve this next generation of leaders so that they too can lead?
I love that. So you're all about influence, right? You want to be. By the way, I'm going to pull this out. That's what Transfluence is all about. Oh, that's great.
They really go hand in hand.
They do. They go hand in hand.
That's the beauty in it. And you probably noted this too in my book. I referenced you and your book on multiple occasions throughout my book because I do see the connection between the two.
Well, thank you, Joe. I mean, it's just awesome to be a brother with you. And I just want to thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of Off the Rak. I mean, I'm grateful to you. And I'm grateful to you on a number of different levels, but in particular, just spending the time, thinking about preparing for and being on this show. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an honor. It's been a privilege. And as I thought about this show today, I thought, you know what? This is just like a day in the life for me and Walt. Talking about leadership, talking about development. I'm just like, this is just what we do. So again, I just want to say that to thank you for the many hours and many conversations that you and I've had around this topic. You've shaped me as a leader, and I'm grateful for that. And this particular opportunity, obviously, to continue that conversation, I'm grateful for as well. So thank you.
Feelings are mutual. You know that, Joe, or I should say Dr. Joe. And I just want to thank all of you who tuned in. You can always find more insights from our guests in the Off the Rak Plus newsletter. And we've got episode previews and highlights and all kinds of stuff in there. So follow Off the Rak on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a review. Share this episode with someone who needs a little purpose-filled inspiration. And until next time, I encourage all of you to be human with one another and find a way to have a positive influence on somebody around you each and every day. Thank you, everybody.